We all want to be loved. That's not the problem. Wanting love is a natural human desire. We're wired for connection, for closeness, for intimacy. But the moment we attach our self-worth to whether or not we're loved, we start to lose ourselves, and this is where the struggle begins. Because suddenly, it's not just about enjoying someone's company or building a life together. It becomes about proving you're good enough, about constantly asking, am I lovable enough for them to stay? That need turns into a fear, and that fear hijacks your ability to show up authentically in a relationship. You start trying to be perfect, you censor your truth, you walk on eggshells, you try to become the person you think they'll love, not the person you truly are. And here's what happens when that becomes your operating system. You give away your power. You become dependent on their mood, their messages, their level of interest. If they're warm, you feel safe. If they pull back, you spiral. Your self-esteem becomes a roller coaster controlled by someone else's behavior, and your emotional stability is at the mercy of someone else's inconsistency. That's not love. That's self-abandonment disguised as devotion. It's obsession disguised as romance. It's fear wrapped in the fantasy of happily ever after. The irony is, the more you try to earn love, the more you repel it. Because deep down, people can feel when your energy isn't grounded. They can sense when your confidence is a performance, when your boundaries are paper thin, when your value is hanging by a thread. It creates anxiety. It creates pressure. You might think you're being caring, giving, available, but the energy that comes from neediness isn't love. It's hunger, and no one wants to feel like they're being consumed by someone else's emptiness. What they want is to feel met, to feel safe, to feel that your love is a choice, not a plea for survival. This is why self-worth is the foundation of any healthy relationship. When you know you're enough, with or without someone else, you don't chase, you don't beg, you don't try to convince someone to stay. You invite, you welcome love, but you don't collapse without it. You know that someone choosing to love you doesn't define your value. It just enhances your life. You can enjoy intimacy without dependency. You can be close without clinging. You can be vulnerable without being desperate. That's the version of you that becomes magnetic, not because you're trying to impress, but because your energy is calm. It's clear, it's safe. So many people believe that love will fix them. That if they can just find someone who says all the right things, does all the right gestures, promises to never leave, then maybe, just maybe, they'll finally feel worthy. But that's not how it works. Love from someone else can mirror the love you've cultivated within yourself, but it can't create it for you. It can support your healing, but it can't replace the work. It can encourage your growth, but it can't be the reason you grow. That responsibility is yours. And here's the truth. When you love yourself first, you stop chasing people who don't. You stop entertaining relationships that drain you. You stop trying to prove that you're lovable because you already know it. That knowing allows you to walk away from inconsistency, from breadcrumbs, from games, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. And in that space, real love can finally enter. Not the kind that fills a hole, but the kind that meets you whole. You will always struggle in love when you confuse validation for connection. You will always suffer when you rely on someone else's affection to feel enough. But when you learn to validate yourself, to honor your own worth, to choose yourself first, not in arrogance, but in wholeness, everything changes. Because now you're not looking for someone to complete you. You're looking for someone to join you. You're not pleading for attention. You're offering presence. And you're no longer afraid of being alone, because you know that you are already home within yourself. Most people don't realize how much of their love life is shaped by the past. We think we're choosing with fresh eyes, making conscious decisions, writing a new story. But the truth is, if you haven't looked at your past honestly, if you haven't healed the wounds that shaped you, then you're not choosing, you're repeating. You're not loving freely, you're reenacting what once hurt you. You find yourself in patterns that feel painfully familiar, situations that echo emotions you've known before, but you tell yourself this one's different until it's not. It's not always about the person you're dating. Sometimes it's about the emotional dynamic they trigger. You keep attracting emotionally unavailable people, and maybe you think it's just bad luck, but ask yourself, who was the first person that made you feel unseen? Who taught you that love meant trying harder, being quieter, waiting longer? Who made you believe you had to earn affection instead of just receiving it? That blueprint is still running in the background, silently guiding your choices. So, you meet someone who is hot and cold, and even though you know it's not good for you, something about it feels like home. Not because it's healthy, but because it's familiar. Familiar doesn't mean safe, it just means known. And the known, even when it's painful, feels more comfortable than stepping into something you've never experienced before. That's why people sabotage good relationships. That's why you pull away from someone kind, steady, consistent. You say things like, I just didn't feel the spark, but that spark you're chasing is often just anxiety in disguise. It's the nervous energy of not knowing where you stand, the adrenaline of unpredictability. And when that becomes your version of passion, you start mistaking chaos for chemistry. Until you stop and really reflect on where these patterns come from, you will continue to be loyal to your wounds. You'll protect them, defend them, even recreate them. Not because you're broken, but because your inner world is still trying to resolve what once felt unresolved. You're trying to rewrite the past through your present choices, hoping that if you can just make this person love you, then maybe you'll finally feel worthy, safe, whole. But relationships aren't therapists, and your partner isn't your parent. They're not meant to heal your childhood, they're meant to walk beside the healed version of you. You can't heal what you don't acknowledge, and healing isn't always about looking back and pointing fingers. It's about looking inward and taking responsibility. It's asking, what do I keep choosing that hurts me? And what is that pain trying to teach me about myself? It's getting curious about your patterns, not judging yourself for them. Because the moment you bring awareness to your cycles, you reclaim the power to break them. You stop being a passenger in your love life and start becoming the driver. And this work, it's not always glamorous. It's uncomfortable. It asks you to sit with feelings you've spent years avoiding. It asks you to feel the sadness beneath the strength, the fear beneath the control, the longing beneath the independence. But it's only by going there that you actually change the script. Because now, instead of choosing from a place of survival, you begin to choose from a place of truth. You no longer need someone to rescue you. You've learned to rescue yourself. You no longer chase love. You invite it in. And you no longer accept emotional crumbs because you know what a full meal of love feels like. When you do that inner work, when you really face yourself, your taste in love changes. The people who once pulled you in suddenly lose their grip. The drama that once excited you starts to drain you. The games you used to play become boring because now you're not looking for someone to fix the past. You're looking for someone who aligns with your present growth. And that shift alone changes everything. You are not doomed to repeat your past. You are not stuck in cycles forever. But you do have to make the brave choice to look at where those cycles began. You have to trace the pattern back to the moment it was created, and you have to decide that you are worthy of writing a new ending. Because once you do, love stops being a battlefield and starts becoming a mirror, a reflection of how deeply you've learned to love and accept yourself. One of the biggest traps people fall into when it comes to love is getting attached to someone's potential. You meet someone and there's this spark, this sense of possibility. Maybe they're not emotionally available right now. Maybe they don't communicate well. Maybe they're still figuring out what they want. But you see glimpses of who they could be and you hold on to that image tightly. You become invested in the future version of them rather than the reality standing in front of you. And you start thinking, if I just love them enough, if I just give them more time, if I just stay patient, they'll become the person I know they can be. But that attachment to potential can become the very thing that breaks your heart. You start justifying their behavior. You ignore red flags because you're so focused on who they might turn into. You make excuses for why they're distant or inconsistent or unavailable. You tell yourself they've just been through a lot, or they're scared to open up, or they just need someone to believe in them, and you play that role. You become the believer, the fixer, the one who gives and waits, hoping that at some point they'll rise into the version you fell in love with. But the truth is, you didn't fall in love with them, you fell in love with a story, with a fantasy, with a version of them that only exists in your mind. And that fantasy can be so powerful that it blinds you to the truth. You don't see how much you're sacrificing, how much you're shrinking, how much you're tolerating. You become so wrapped up in what this relationship could be that you miss what it actually is. You miss the fact that you're doing most of the emotional labor, that you're always the one initiating, always the one holding space, always the one carrying the relationship forward. And deep down, it starts to hurt, because while you're showing up fully, they're still halfway in. And no matter how much potential they have, no matter how great their heart is underneath the surface, it doesn't change the fact that love only works when both people are willing to grow together. It's not your job to fix someone. It's not your job to wait around while someone figures out if they're ready. And it's certainly not your job to abandon your needs just to preserve a version of the relationship that only exists in the future. Love isn't about seeing the best in someone and ignoring the rest. Love is about seeing clearly, seeing both the good and the not so good, and choosing with eyes wide open. Choosing someone not just for who they could be someday, but for who they are right now. Are they kind? Are they consistent? Are they capable of meeting you emotionally? Are they available, present, and willing to do the work with you? Not in theory, but in action. We get into trouble when we confuse love with potential because we tie our worth to someone else's progress. We think if they finally become that amazing partner, then I'll know I was enough. Then I'll know I was worth it. So we stick around waiting for change, hoping that our patience will be rewarded. But what we don't see is how that waiting slowly chips away at our confidence, our clarity, our joy. We become addicted to the idea of being chosen, not realizing that the most important choice is the one we make for ourselves. Real love shows up now. It's not hidden behind empty promises or delayed growth. It's not something you have to beg for or build from scratch. It doesn't leave you guessing, it doesn't need convincing, and it certainly doesn't require you to be less than who you are while someone else tries to become more than they're willing to be. You deserve someone who's ready to love you now, not someone who's hoping to get there someday. You deserve someone who meets you with effort, presence, and clarity, not confusion, delay, and excuses. When you let go of the fantasy and start seeing reality for what it is, you take your power back. You stop trying to mold someone into who you want them to be and start making space for the love that's already aligned with who you are. You realize that your role in a relationship isn't to wait for someone to grow up. It's to grow together with someone who's already standing beside you, not stuck in the shadow of their own potential. It's a strange thing, isn't it? You say you want real love. You say you're ready for someone who shows up, who listens, who stays, who communicates, who gives without conditions and chooses you fully. But then, the moment it arrives, something inside of you flinches. You start second guessing. You feel uncomfortable, maybe even bored. You think, why doesn't this feel like love? And the answer is simple, because healthy love doesn't match the emotional chaos you've grown used to. It doesn't trigger your nervous system. It doesn't make you chase or beg or guess. It feels stable, steady, safe. And when your idea of love has been shaped by inconsistency, that safety can feel foreign, even suspicious. That's why you push it away, not because you don't want love, but because part of you doesn't know what to do with something that doesn't hurt. You've gotten so used to being on edge, waiting for the text, questioning your worth, walking on emotional eggshells, that when someone just shows up consistently, your body doesn't recognize it as love. It recognizes it as unfamiliar, and unfamiliar often feels unsafe, even when it's the very thing you've been craving. So you test it, you doubt it, you self-sabotage. You start creating problems where there aren't any, picking fights, or withdrawing emotionally, not because you want to destroy it, but because you're afraid of fully receiving it. See, receiving healthy love requires a different kind of strength. It requires openness. It requires trust. It requires the willingness to believe that you are worthy of being treated well, not just occasionally, but consistently. That's hard when your past relationships taught you that love meant proving yourself. That you had to earn affection by overgiving, by tolerating neglect, by staying silent, by making yourself smaller. So when someone comes along who offers love without those conditions, it disrupts everything you thought you knew, and it reveals something deeper, that maybe, somewhere along the way, you started believing that real love wasn't meant for you. You learned to be strong, but in the wrong ways. You learned how to endure pain, how to wait for breadcrumbs, how to mask your needs so you wouldn't be too much. But you never learned how to relax into love, how to let someone hold space for your vulnerability, how to say yes to being seen and still believe you're enough. That's the work, that's the edge, not just choosing love, but allowing it to stay when it finally feels good. Not running from peace because drama feels more familiar. So many people get caught in this cycle, wanting the very thing they fear. You meet someone healthy, grounded, available, and instead of leaning in, you start finding flaws. You convince yourself the chemistry's missing or that there must be something wrong with them. But really, what's missing is the adrenaline rush you once mistook for love. You're not bored, you're just unlearning the chaos. You're not disconnected, you're just detoxing from emotional addiction. Because let's be honest, when love used to mean anxiety, stability can feel like withdrawal. You don't need to work for love. That's one of the biggest lies so many people internalize. Love that is real doesn't require you to hustle for it. It requires you to receive it, and receiving requires a sense of self-worth that says, I don't have to earn affection, I just have to be present with it. But if you don't feel safe being seen, if you don't feel safe being soft, then healthy love will always feel just out of reach. You'll find a reason to end it. You'll tell yourself it's not the right time, or they're too nice, or there's no passion. And deep down, what you're really saying is, this feels too good to be true. But that's not the truth. That's the trauma talking. That's the past trying to protect you from being hurt again. Here's the thing. If you don't heal the part of you that's afraid of being loved fully, you'll keep running from the very thing you were born to receive. You'll stay stuck in cycles that feel comfortable but leave you empty. You'll keep choosing people who reflect your fears instead of your worth. But once you decide you are safe in love, safe to receive, safe to rest, safe to trust, everything changes. Because now you're not just attracting love, you're actually able to hold onto it when it comes. You're not doubting it. You're not fighting it. You're meeting it with open hands and a full heart. And that's when love finally becomes what it was always meant to be, something that frees you, not something you have to survive.